Welcome to the return of Stolen Bases with the old lefty 22, Marty Roberts here. Marty, top of the morning to you. Atlanta Braves hat. Uh, you're sporting the Atlanta Braves hat. Mets in the background. No Blue Jay stuff because actually you're going to break some news. You were contacted by Ross Atkins about doing bullpen side sessions, correct?
Oh, I was right behind Ackford when he made that call. I was there. They said, "Hey, come." And I'm like, "I'm a little busy. I got some shows I have to do on the Fired Up Network." So I pass them up. But you missed the other one too. I got a Bryant jersey up in the middle that you couldn't see because of my big head.
Yeah, so okay, there you go. The Cubs. We'll talk about the Cubs also and all that. But I know you wanted to start off with the draft. So go ahead, start off with the draft.
Yeah, so the MLB draft starts July 11th to 13th. They pushed it back this year. It's usually, I think, early June. It usually does happen, but they pushed it off a bit. Major League Baseball has their combine going on right now, which is the first time Major League Baseball has done that. I'm not sure how many of the top prospects have decided to attend there. They might have been asked. I don't know if they all went. I know a few kids that I know didn't go, and I do know of one that has attended from he goes to school in California, and he's a Toronto kid, so he's there. But there's a few players I want to talk about that I don't know where they'll situate themselves. I think somewhere in the top five. You know, the Pirates had the first pick overall, and right now I think with everyone watching it, they don't know what the Pirates are going to do. You know, with the Pirates, it's about money for them. It's whoever they can get the cheapest at that number one spot. So if someone does say, yeah, I'll take it, they'll take him. If not, they'll move to the next guy. So right now it's looking like, they want to take Meyer out of a shortstop out of California who's 6'3", 188 pounds. He has average to above average tools in a lot of his categories, right? But he's a kid that won't drop to below 3, so he might have a little leverage on the Pirates there, where he says, no, I want a little bit more money, and then the Pirates have to look somewhere else to get a kid. So there's also another shortstop out of Texas. His name is Lawler. He's above a 5-tool kid. He's got it all. He can run, hit, throw, hit for power, field. He can do it all. This kid. So those are probably gonna be the top two guys in the draft. I think I don't know which way it goes. If Lawler goes to 1, if Meyer says no. But the interesting thing is, depending on who goes 1, that could also affect, because Texas has the second pick overall. And to me, I think Texas takes Leiter. We all know who Leiter is. That's Al Leiter's son, who pitched for the Blue Jays. He's in Vanderbilt right now, and he's really brought his A game this season. He had a little stretch where he struggled a bit, but he tops out at 97 miles an hour. The one downfall is he's not a very big kid to be a starter in Major League Baseball. He's 6'1", 205 pounds, but that's a kid I see that Texas could sign if something doesn't work out right at that number 1 spot. So, and then there's a Kumar Rocker, who's also at Vanderbilt, who is last year was projected to be number 1 pick overall, and he struggled a bit this season. Still tops out at 99 miles an hour. Big guy, 6'5", 245. I had the pleasure of watching him when he was a senior in high school, when my son was down playing there, and he was throwing then 95, 96 miles an hour. And as a freshman at Vanderbilt, he threw a no-hitter against Duke, striking out 19 guys. So he has it. Does Pittsburgh say to Rocker, hey, we want to take you 1 overall? And Rocker just wants that 1 title, and they give him what they think they want to give it that spot. So it's interesting. It could switch a bit here, but that's what I wanted to talk about. I think that's, there's a couple other guys in there that might, move up or down depending on what happens in front. But those are the guys I really like to in this draft. And there's also another high school kid. I'm not big on high school kids being drafted out of high school. I'm really not big on that. I like to see them go to college, at least junior college, for 1 year and see how they do there. But there's a Jackson Jobe out of Oklahoma that could be projected in the top 4 as well. He's throwing up to 96 miles an hour as a high school kid. So that's my thoughts on that. And we'll see. And a couple of kids that I know, and we've had on a show on Friday, the sports wrap up, Tyler Black, and then there's a Denzel Clark that could go in anywhere between 2 and 7th round. So it'd be interesting to see, but that's what I wanted to touch on there. That draft goes on July 11th to 13th, and right now Major League Baseball is having their first ever combine.
All right, and we're based out of Toronto, so I'm going to say, what does the Blue Jays draft board look like?
It's always been, you want to take that best available player at that time, but they're loaded with middle infielders. I was talking to a couple people today. The one thing I don't see out of the Blue Jays is a lot of guys that are coming up throwing upper 90s out of their organization. There's a couple that are there, but there's no one throwing 98, 99 on a consistent basis that they can rely on. So I can see them going after which they've done over the last couple of years, go and get that high velocity type pitcher and see if that works out. Manoah was one a couple of years ago, I think, out of West Virginia he came from. So I see them possibly going after another guy who can throw some velo, and in a few years we'll see him up in the big leagues. But if a player drops in their laps, that all changes, right? You don't know what's happening. Like I said, Pittsburgh has $14.6 million to spend on all their draft picks. Before, years ago, there used to be no limits. Now each team has what they can spend. So in order to make that last, there's some guys that are getting under slot money. So I think that's why Pittsburgh's hoping to get someone under slot money in that first pick overall. So then later on in the rounds, a kid who might be deciding he wants to go away to school, they give him a little bit of money, more money in that slot to have him change his mind to come to the Pirates. So all that happens, as draft goes along, guys try to make under slot predictions and then give a little bit more later. So it'll be interesting to see how this all works. But I think, top 3 picks are Pirates, Rangers, then the Tigers.
All right, let's look into Major League Baseball right now. We won't touch the Blue Jays. We'll go through Major League Baseball later on. We'll do the Blue Jays on another show here. I want to touch on what we touched on the sports wrap up. Vlad Guerrero, Itani, and yesterday Tatis Jr. Oh my gosh, three home runs. Vlad takes the lead again, and show Itani, Tatis, who already signed a $1 billion deal, okay? And now Vlad with Otani and all that. Let's get, these youngsters, 22, 23. Has baseball have ever been rich with this talent at this young age?
Yeah, those are 3 guys that will carry this league for years to come. And then you had Acuna Jr. that is a little behind these guys, but you have Tatis. He missed some time too, right? So he has himself 25 home runs and 215 at bats. He's batting somewhere around, I think, 300, 54 RBIs, and he's a guy that when he's going, there might not be anyone better. He plays everything. He does everything. He's a shortstop. He can hit for power, hit for average. And then you got Vlad, who's just being dominant with the Jays this year, right? He has 25 home runs, 62 RBIs. He's batting 340, only second in the American League. I forget who's number 1, but he's at 355, whoever it is. I forget who it is. It'll come to me in a bit. But then you have Otani, who does it both at the plate and on the mound. So you have him 24 home runs, 55 RBIs. And then on the mound, he's 3-1 with a 2.58 ERA, and he's striking out 82 guys in 52 innings, and opponents are hitting $188 against him. So, it's. I guess we're lucky here.
Michael Bradley, 355.
Yes, and that's right. And I remember that only because I was thinking, it'd be nice to have him with the Blue Jays. We had him. Yeah, and the rumor was he had signed, but he didn't. But we're extremely lucky here in Toronto to have him, just like Anaheim is in Los Angeles and the Padres are in San Diego. The only one that's locked in for long term is Tatis, right? So San Diego gets to see him for 10, 11 years, whatever that contract was for. Otani, in a couple more years, he's going to be a free agent, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes. And then you got Vlad, who, I think he's 5 or 6 years, whatever the arbitration years are for the Jays. But I could see the Jays eventually signing him to a deal like Acuna got in Atlanta, eat up a couple of arbitration years, give him a little bit more money in the short term to save them in arbitration years, right? So very lucky, and those are three guys that can win the MVP in either one of their leagues, the American League or the National League, right?
Yeah, that's again, baseball. I don't think has ever been this rich with this much talent at young age here, right? And let's look. One thing that the Blue Jays need desperately is a closer. Liam Hendricks was a Blue Jay. Now he's pitching for the White Sox. He has 19 saves on the year. Baltimore has 24 wins the whole year. All
Yeah.
right, like that. That just I don't want to touch so much on the Jays, but like yes, they need starting pitching who pitches 6-7 innings. But now, more importantly than ever in baseball, you're a former pitcher here. Closers and a reliable bullpen because the Jays have blown. Let's say what we're in game 65, 15 games this year.
Yeah, and another one last night, right? And you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. Like Romano could close games, but ideally Romano would be set up for that setup man,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
They had that closer. Then you have 8, 9 taken care of. Then seven. It's whoever's going. You get them in there, and unfortunately, I had said earlier on in the year I would have loved to seen the Jays get Kimbrough from the Cubs. Unfortunately, the Cubs are playing extremely good right now. I don't see them being sellers. They might be buyers now in order to take over Milwaukee in that Central Division. So I think he's off, and he's got a .53 ERA. He's up there in saves. I think he's second only to what's it, Melicon
Yeah.
from San Diego. So it's that's a spot you really need. Like you look at when the Jays won their World Series, they had two quality guys that could close out games. Any team has closers that can get them in that ninth inning. All top teams have it, and the Jays need this in order to move on. But they'll have to go searching. We'll talk later on that with when we go to the Blue Jay show. But yeah, closers are a big thing in Major League Baseball. They make it a lot easier on the manager knowing that ninth inning is taken care of, and every now and then it could be 8 and 9. And Hendricks right now, he started slow. He's one of the best closers now in the last couple months after a slow start. So that's why the White Sox are going. Chicago's going because Kimbrough's going because they can close out games and it makes it easier. So closers are a big part of any winning team.
And you talked about also Hader and Milwaukee's in first place, so it's like
Right. Like it's all these teams that I thought could be sellers aren't going to be sellers if they're sitting at the top of the division, right? I thought St. Louis was going to be a little bit better in that Central Division, but they've really dropped off. They're a team that's going to have to figure it out to knock out, Milwaukee and the Cubs because those two teams have really picked it up of late, and St. Louis is now, I think it's 7 or 8 games out of that Central Division, so they're not going to get the wild card spot, so they have to win that division. The wild card spot's going to come from one of San Francisco. Well, two of the teams that are San Francisco, Dodgers, or the Padres. So wild card spot's locked up there. So every other team's going to have to win their divisions, and not only does St. Louis have to pick it up. The Braves have to pick it up.
all right.
They're
Sorry, if I who's the best record wise? Tell me who the best team in baseball is.
it's San Francisco Giants.
49-26. Now, if I told you at the beginning of the year to bet some shekels on San Fran, we could have been rich. All right, so
Yeah, that's a team that you thought, hey, they're going to cool off. They just keep winning. It doesn't matter. They'll beat the Dodgers. They'll beat the Padres. They're now 4.5 games up on the Dodgers, and it doesn't look like they're going to stop. They're on another 4-game winning streak. They got guys like Buster Posey, who's looked like he's found the fountain of youth, right? And they got pitchers. It's just amazing there. And I was talking to a friend of mine from St. Louis, and he was saying that it wouldn't surprise him if Arenado out of St. Louis decided at the end of the year to go to San Francisco next year because I guess he's a boy from out that way. So he said it wouldn't surprise him with the way the Cardinals are going that Arenado decides next year San Francisco he's going to call home.
and you said, like, let's look at the West, okay?
Yep.
Here, San Fran, the Dodgers and the Padres. But also in the American League, for me another surprise, Oakland. Oakland, like every year, like the you can bet on Tampa. Doesn't matter who they could have from Stan Wagner Park pitching. All right, so like they could have nobodies there, and they're in first. And Oakland, every year or every other year, they come out of nowhere. They're a game behind Houston. Houston's 47-26, but Oakland is right there,
Yeah, and they
and
been,
yet they want to move. Yet they want
well,
to move to Vegas.
I guess eventually the owner of that team wants to, be able not to struggle looking, because they don't put very much money into that team, right? They don't get very many fans out there. The ballpark is god
Crap.
awful.
Yeah.
It's not very good. The fans that go there, there's not very many. I mean, even when they were back in their heyday, when they were going good all the time, when they had, the Mark McGuire's, the Caseco's, the Dave Stewart's, it still wasn't sold out all the time, right? So it's a place that doesn't attract a lot of fans, and I can see why the owner in Oakland wants to move it out of there. But props to them that they just find player after player. They lose Simeon last year, and look, they don't skip a
Imagine
beat.
if
They
Simeon was on Oakland this year. Like Oakland
right,
would
but
be, you know,
but that's the thing. Simeon leaves, they got someone to come in
yeah.
and take care of it. So they really don't mind doing this, and they have pitching. I think Bassett's their number one guy going there. They just show up, and teams like that, Oakland and Tampa Bay, don't spend an awful lot of money, but they know how to win. And kudos to their, I guess, their scouting staff, their general managers, all the front office guys there. They really know how to find baseball players that everyone else doesn't look at fully and says, let's take a chance of this guy because I see something. I mean, it works.
And that's like I mentioned, Houston. But we have to, or at least I'm going to give them a little bit of kudos with all this sign stealing and all this cheating and all that. But they're not cheating now, and they're still in first place. And Altuve, who was at the center of this cheating scandal, has found the fountain of youth again. And he's not that old, but like this guy is on a tear, hitting home runs, stopping, and all that. It looks like Houston had something to play for and want to show the world, okay, whatever happened, happened, but we're still good.
Yeah, they have a lot of good players over there, right? They got a manager too that allows them to play. He doesn't look at this analytic crap. He uses his eyes and sees, like with his pitching staff. He allows his pitching staff to regularly go,
Yeah,
over 100 pitches and lets them go. And then when it's tired, he gets tired, then I'll take him out. Altuve, maybe last year he struggled a bit because he was all concerned about his reputation. Every time he got up, he thought he was going to get hit. Like you said, he's this year's 17 home runs.
yeah.
I don't think he was even close to 17 last year. Right? He's
At the
batting
end of the
close,
year, he's going to hit 30, 35 home
right?
runs for.
So
And let's face it, you talk about Vlad Guerrero big, and even though he lost weight, and you talk Shohei still big, but but Altuve, what is he like? He's a foot smaller than all these guys, and still delivering it.
yeah, and you got Carrera at second, at
Yeah,
shortstop, who's, I believe, he's a free agent at the end of this year, so he's going to be looking to get paid. And does he do what Brantley does and stays there because of unfinished business, or does he look elsewhere? Right? It's Carrera could be a guy I see stays in Houston only because he spent a lot of time opening his mouth after all the allegations came out with the cheating. Right? So he may have ticked off a few people elsewhere, whereas in Houston, they love him there. So he might be a guy just like Altuve will stay there and finish out anything he has in Houston there. So, and then you got Kyle Tucker, who's come in and he's doing well, 13 home runs, 44 RBIs. They just get it done there. It's amazing to see that team. And like I said, I wish the Jays had got Brantley. Unfortunately, we didn't, but
but also you
Astros.
wish that Springer, who has played only one game this year, that's another part. Like if Springer would have played some of these bullpen games that we lost, I don't think we would have lost. But That's not here nor there. Now I want to touch on your hat there, Atlanta Braves. We touch on all these Houston, Oakland, Tampa. If you penciled in the National League East, you would pencil in Atlanta to start the year. Now we know the GM, Billy the Greek, with another Greek there, Alex Antopoulos, and all that. I'm surprised he has stayed patient. I'm surprised he has stayed patient, and because Atlanta had a lot riding on them making first place, making the playoffs, and last year they lost out and everything like that. They're every year they go to the postseason and everything, but this year that division, the Mets are on top. The Mets, 39-32. Okay, and Atlanta, I believe they're 37-37 or something like that. It's again these teams, you talk about teams that from out of nowhere, like Tampa, like all that, but they flip it around. Atlanta, who's supposed to be in first place, struggling.
Yeah, and I don't think Double A is he's maybe worried a bit, but he's in the National League East where there's still only 5 games out of it, right? Even
Yeah.
though they're a couple of games or 3 games behind or below 500, they're still in it. So at any time he can pull a trade off and see if that helps them because they need pitching. That's what Atlanta needs. Atlanta needs some pitching. They got guys that can hit on that team. Got Freeman, Acuna. They got guys there. It's the pitching staff that is I guess let them down this season so far. And Swanson's starting to pick it up. I have him in my fantasy pool. That's the only reason why I know that. But I think as you see, I think there is a few of these GMs that are trying to make moves right now. But some of these teams are holding on to see, like I said earlier, the Cubs in Milwaukee. I thought were going to be sellers. Now all of a sudden they're not. So I think teams are going to wait a little longer till I think trade deadline's in near the end of July, and see if they're still in it. Then that's when they'll trade, and then maybe that's when the teams trading off can maximize what they're going to get back in return for what they're given. So I think there's a lot of these GMs that are making calls to find out. It just hasn't happened. That's why you see a lot of guys that are not depth guys are in the minor leagues moving around because they're not the big trade chips right now, right? They're trying to fill the rosters out until the time being. But Atlanta, I see them still finishing first in that division. I don't think the Mets can stay up there. Like DeGrom, as much as I love DeGrom, he's throwing amazing, but he keeps getting injured this season. He goes out there, he hurts something else. So I don't know if he'll be able to finish the year out healthy. Syndergaard got shut down, so he's not anywhere near coming back. So it'll be interesting to see, but I still think Atlanta's there, and if not, we will see Double A pull off a trade to strengthen that pitching staff for sure.
So let's look at another thing. Okay, we talked about Atlanta, we talked about these, but and like I mentioned, every year you could pencil in Tampa, but unfortunately, every year for how long? Well, maybe the last 10 years, you Pittsburgh Pirates. You mentioned them last place. Okay,
Yep.
when is the turnaround, and why is it nobody talking about the general manager or manager of Pittsburgh? Like they got a 10. Okay, well, if you win 60 games, that's better than we did last year at 49. Like, when is the Pittsburgh, when you think about Pittsburgh, your team, Pittsburgh Penguins, like, they're always pressure, and the Steelers always have pressure on them. But the Pirates, ever since they made that trade, they've gone way downhill, and nobody's talking about them. Every year, they're the worst team in baseball.
Yeah, it's you wonder why. I don't look at the Pirates that much to see what their general manager is, how long he's been there. But you would think after lose him year after year by like you just said, 60 wins getting. That's their. It looks like it's their line where they want to get to
Barometer,
60
yeah.
wins, right?
Yeah.
And they're happy with getting there. Maybe they're looking at the future. Right now, we're stocking up these young guys. And then sort of like what the Blue Jays are right now with all these young guys that have come up, maybe that's what Pittsburgh's looking at. We'll get the prospects ready, and then 2-3 years down the road, hey, we're going to be a team that can
10
field.
years like this already.
Exactly.
So.
Yep. And you're right. Look, they traded Glass now, right? There's a guy that they traded, and look what he's done with Tampa Bay now, right? So, and I believe, if I remember correctly, didn't Garrett Cole start out with Pittsburgh as well?
Yes.
So someone there is not looking in the future, they're not giving up just average guys. They're giving up absolute
Stars,
studs, right?
stars. Yeah,
They're and what they're getting back isn't
nobodies.
anything special. They're not around. So yeah, Pittsburgh has to look at what they're doing. Maybe sit down with Tampa Bay and Oakland and find out what they do. And Pittsburgh should start doing it because Pittsburgh has a beautiful ballpark. I've been there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, no one's going to the ballpark anymore. So they're not going to draw any big names anymore. Like the McCutcheons have all left now. They're not coming back. There's no one going to sign for millions and millions of dollars. So they're going to have to look within, and they're going to have to start winning in order for fans to start showing up to watch the Pirates play.
So I wanted to ask you as we close out here this edition of Stolen Bases on the Fired Up Network with Marty Roberts, old FD22. Should this year, last year they had 2 wildcard teams.
Yep.
Should we continue having these? Because like when you have these 2 wildcard teams all year, especially last year was only 60 games, but especially when you play 162 games, it keeps fans interested basically all year. Like we talk Pittsburgh. I'm not saying they're making the second wild card or whatever, but a team like St. Louis, like you talked about, they're 500. But if they make the second wild card, they're only 5, 6, 7 games out, right? Should baseball, and there's 162 games, put a second wild card team every year? And in that vein, should we get rid of or just have the DH in everything?
Well, your first question about the wild card. When it first happened, I wasn't the biggest because I'm a old school guy, right? I
Yeah.
didn't like it. I liked the winning the division, and that was it. That's who played. But I've grown to like the wild card for the fact, like you said, it keeps more teams in it in the month of September. You don't see guys or teams just writing the season off. They're playing for it. So if you're within 5 games that month of September, you still have a shot at making the playoffs, right? And every owner wants to make the playoffs because that's profit in their pocket.
And let's face it, baseball does a great job. The whole month of September, probably there's, let's say, 25 games. 20 out of 25 you're playing against your division. So you can make up the 4 or 5 games in that month.
Yeah, I like the wild card, and it wouldn't surprise me in the future if MLB turns to adding a couple more teams. They'd have to work out how the scheduling would go in the playoffs, but it wouldn't surprise me just to give a few more teams that opportunity to make the playoffs and keep the interest in the month of September going for a lot of these small market teams that feel that they're out right as soon as the season starts. They feel they're done already because they can't compete with the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Padres this year. They can't compete with teams like that. So at least with these wild card spots, it gives those teams, those fans, and that's what it's about, the fans, right? It's about them watch these games, and if it's not for the fans, these leagues don't exist. So keeping the fans interested, thinking that their team has a shot, and then in some cases their team does make it. As for the DH question, I honestly think that Major League Baseball has to universal DH in both leagues. I think the times of pitchers hitting are done. I think and I know the union wants it. It's another player that they get to put on the roster. But I think it adds more excitement to the game when you add another bat in there. And then, Major League Baseball's complaining about not enough offense. What better way to create more offense in the National League is if you add another batter, another hitter in that lineup that can actually hit and not bunting every time he comes up. So
What do you think
Baseball.
Major League Baseball desperately wants more Otanis there? Okay, so like how many Otanis for a pitcher? Like the guy, if you look at, he has 60, 70 hits already. The whole Major League Baseball for the last 10 years, pitchers don't have 70 hits.
Yeah, I'll give credit to our good buddy Billy last night when we were on the sports wrap up. He said that there has been players that are both pitchers and hitters in university, college, and once they get drafted, the team says no, you're either a pitcher or a hitter. Ohtani had the cards on him. He held all the cards. He said, if I'm coming to you, I'm doing both hitting and pitching, and Angels couldn't do anything about it. If you want him, he's got to do both. So I hope this now changes a lot of the thinking around the league that, hey, pitchers can hit, hitters can pitch, and there's some guys that can do it at an elite level. Ohtani showed it. Like the Blue Jays had a guy years ago, John Olerud.
Olerud, yeah.
Right? He threw in the 90s as a pitcher, and there was talk that when he got there, he was going to be one of those guys that did it, and unfortunately, he only played first base. He never pitched. But I think you now will see there'll be that guy out there looking, see, hey, this guy can pitch and hit. He might be the next Otani. So I would like to see that as well. More guys that play pitch and play and hit as well.
And getting back to the extra wild card team, you said we'll see how Major League Baseball has to add teams or whatever. It's the simplest thing. You see, the NFL this year added an extra game because they took off a week of preseason.
Yep.
Okay, spring training. Everybody says it's way too long. Take off. Spring training goes from February 24th, 25 till March 28th. Take off the last week of March, play the regular season, start like March 24th instead of March 31st, and there you have it. You make it up. You don't even have to you don't even have to go to 154 games or whatever. Play 162 games. You start a week earlier, you finish the same time with the World Series and everything. That's what you do. The NFL is doing it. NFL actually should only play 2 preseason games. 3 is like whatever. But in baseball, they play 25 to 28 spring training games.
Yep.
That's as a pitcher. You as a pitcher, how many games spring training or a pitcher or a hitter do you need to get sharp?
Well, that's different for everyone, right? There's some guys that it takes a little longer from the get. So for me, after 3 or 4 starts before the season starts, I'm ready to go. I'm at 100%, right? But there's some guys that take a little longer. Some guys like to work strictly on certain pitches in spring training, right? Okay, I'm going to work on my slider. That's why you can't put much stock into what happens in spring training because guys are working on things. It's not necessarily what you're going to see once the regular season comes. But I do think spring training is a little bit long in regards to every other sport that has their training camps, right? So I think they might have to cut that down some. At the same time, it does give other players that opportunity that are not necessarily going to make the big league club, but gives them an opportunity to play and put a name for themselves so they be looked at later in the future, in that season or a couple years down the road. They say, hey, remember this kid? And we saw him play. So that's a bunch of the options there because a lot of the minor leaguers come into there and you'll see guys rotating out. That's why the pros or the big league guys don't play every day in spring training. They rest off and other guys come in. But yeah, it is a little bit long to me, but
And
Major League Baseball.
You would need 3 or 4
Yep.
starts, let's say. So let's say every 5th day. So 3 every 50 is 15 games.
Yep.
If 4 starts is 20 games. They
Yep.
play 30 games.
Yeah, they could take it down by a week or so, but some guys come in already ready to go. They from the second that they're done,
everybody comes in.
They come in, and then there is some guys that come in and they need the full 30 days to get going because they did nothing over the offseason, right? I think Major League Baseball has some bigger concerns because I think contract is coming up soon, and I don't know
Next
baseball's. Year. I honestly think, in my opinion, there is going to be a stall in negotiations, and there might be another lockout type strike, whatever you want to call it, for Major League Baseball, because there's a lot of issues here that are going on that players are not happy with. MLB is not happy with some stuff. So there could be after next year, there could be a lockdown strike type situation where, hopefully it's not too long and they don't miss any games. But I honestly think, and one of the bigger things that has come up is this doctoring ball thing, right? That's a lot of that has really bugged a lot of pitchers, players, everything. It's a black eye to the game, and to me, they've been doing it for just over a week now, checking guys and
yeah. But you're a pitcher, okay? The rookie sensation. So I'm gonna say this: how long has that been going on? And now, why now? Because it seems to me it's been going on since the start of baseball. Anything to get in baseball, anything to get an edge, okay? And if you're the player and the catcher's making the signs or whatever, why aren't you looking down? Now, there's many guys who look down and look around and then look down and all that. Come on, it's been going on for 150 years.
Yeah,
Why
it's
all of
been
a sudden now?
all of a sudden now is because averages, run production isn't as high as what it used to be. So they now have to figure out a way to create more runs, higher batting
Or
averages.
maybe the pitchers are better. You ever think of that? We talked about Vlad Guerrero. We talked about a pitcher and a hitter hitting 25 bombs. If you're a good player, you can hit. If you're a good pitcher, you can pitch. Simple like that.
There's no question pitchers have gotten better over the years, velocity wise.
Yeah.
But hitters, they have gone to a different approach, in my opinion, is they don't like the base hits anymore. They like the long balls, right?
Bombs. Yeah.
And launch angles and that have all changed. So years ago, guys would put the bat in the ball, get a base hit to right field. Now he's missing it because he's getting underneath the ball or whatever, right? So more strikeouts are happening, and until that changes, I don't think it matters about putting substance on the ball or not. They still aren't going to hit it. Like I said, for the last week, this has happened and run production has not increased. I actually think it's gone down some. There's been a no-hitter. The Cubs threw a no-hitter the other night. I've seen a couple shutouts, one-run games. So it hasn't, in the short term, it hasn't affected. What it does do, and, people, oh, yeah, sure. When you're handed a baseball, years ago, umpires used to rub it up. I think it was like red mud or something like that. They used to take the slipperiness off of the ball, because sometimes you get a ball, it's extremely slippery. There's no seams on the ball. Some balls have seams, some balls don't have seams. So it's a grip issue, right? That's why you see guys rub their hand in the dirt, the rosin bag, get some grip on the ball. Until they figure that out, this is always going to happen. Someone's going to get hurt because a guy can't control the ball anymore because it slips out of his hand. Yeah. Whether it's a curveball, a slider, a fastball, he can't grip the ball properly. And that's part of the issue here, is these balls are now being rubbed down by locker room attendants. And they're just giving it, and it comes out practically white. Back in the day, it used to come out like with a reddish look to it.
Yeah.
Now it's coming out plain white.
The hitters, like you said, the hitters just want bombs, right? You mentioned a guy, John Olerud. John Olerud, what 1 year he batted 350 or whatever, and he had like 12 home runs. Every year he has, because he didn't give a crap about home runs. He was the king of singles, and he couldn't run to second because he never had doubles, and I don't think he ever had triples, right? So he was happy hitting singles. What's wrong? You're on base. Now the stats with baseball and every sport, but launch angles and the spin rates and all that, you have never heard, honestly, such crap in your life. Because if you hit the ball, do you really care? Or, oh my gosh, I hit it on this angle, I got to try this angle, maybe I got to hit the ball. You're paid to hit the ball. You're paid to pitch the
unfortunately, it's the time that baseball's going through right now is that I've talked to a lot of guys. They think eventually it'll start going back a little bit to the other way. To me, it's more like these guys love hitting their home runs just so they can see what special bat flip they can do, what special dance step they can do rounding third base, praise, up above.
Well, you're blaming Batista.
Well, but see, with Batista, I don't blame Batista. Batista hit a shot that was meaningful.
Yeah.
It meant something. Game. It meant something. These guys are now doing it they'll be down by 4 runs and hit it and do a bat flip and do a fancy run around the bases. If it's a meaningful bomb, I don't mind it at all. Great. It wins a game for you. Great. It ties up. Great. But if you're down by 3-4 runs, just run the damn bases.
I agree. Baseball, what happened, and you can appreciate this. Your pitcher, like I said, rookie sensation, like the Greek says, 60-year-old rookie sensation. But anyways, baseball was a game of thought. When are you going to throw the next pitch and the sweet science and everything? Now it's like they want to make baseball in real life like a video game. That's it. How many bombs do you hit? Are you participating in the home run derby? Look, Vlad says no. You're in an all-star game. You got to do the home run derby. You know how hard it's to hit 100 home runs? That's what they do in the home run derby. Your average guy who is in the home run derby sees 120 pitches and has to hit 100 home runs in a span of 10 minutes.
Like I get why some of these guys don't want to do the home run derby, because when they're doing it, they do switch their swing up to hit them out in that home run derby, and then it messes it up for a little bit later when they go back in the season. But at the same time, the All-Star game is about the people sitting in the stands. So if you're going to hold these competitions, home run derbies or contests that the NBA does or NHL does, don't you think that the best players should be doing those events? So if you're the guy, unless you're injured, if you don't participate in this home run derby, there should be some type of fine, just like in Ovechkin. If he didn't show up for the All-Star game, he was suspended.
Yeah.
If you're not going to be given what the fans want, because the fans want to see an Otani, a Tatis, a Vlad Jr. go in there and hit the home run. They don't want to see, Randall Grichuk going up there and hit in the home run derby. They want to see the big guys that hit home runs on a regular basis do this so they can give their oohs and ahs. And to me, that's something that has to change. And it's happened for years. Guys don't want to do it because it messes up their swing. But a guy like Vlad, honestly, his swing doesn't change.
No.
Whether it's a base hit or a home run, he has the same swing. And that's what he did last year in the home run derby. He didn't switch his swing. It was the exact same type of swing. So for someone like him, I don't think it would hurt him. Same as Otani. It wouldn't hurt him.
Marty, I know you're a couple of years older than me, but I'm going to say this. Enough with these games at All-Star games and playoff games at 9 o'clock that go 5 hours and all that. Baseball is the king of tradition.
Yeah.
What about playing these games, an All-Star game, at 4 p.m.? Start playoff games. I know it's for TV now and all that, but you start, and they do it in the playoffs, 1, 4, 7, 10, right? But start well, maybe not World Series. I know you want to play at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock game, but these other ALCS, NLCS, play them in the afternoon. Let the kids, you're talking about the future of a sport. These kids who are 9, 10, 11 years old, they can't stay up till 1 in the morning. Every playoff game, every All-Star game even, is at 1. The NFL has it right. They play it in the daytime. That's why it's the most popular sport, because everybody's gambling. Like Billy the Greek gambles away the money, and he likes the Dallas Cowboys. Who likes the Dallas? Never mind. But come on. And don't you agree? These, especially with baseball, like we talked about the Blue Jays, they took off radio. Baseball is made for radio. Now, no, nothing against Dan Shulman and all that. They simulcast it, but it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same, but I know why, and I get why they do it. It's all about money, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's about the TV dollars. As for why the NFL, they only play one game a week, right? So they can pick Sunday, which is an off day for almost everyone
but
around.
Saturday, Sunday, they play afternoon games here in Major
Yep.
League Baseball all the time.
Yep. So, but Saturday and Sunday, they if you notice, a lot of games are a lot earlier on Saturday and Sunday as opposed during the weekday because their stands might be empty. If they start a game at 1:30 on a Tuesday, only people that can get out are people that are executives, right?
I understand during the week, Monday to Thursday, okay, fine. But if you're talking about, 3 games in playoffs and all that, play them at 4 and 7, 4 and 7, 4 and 7, instead of like Yankees and Boston. It doesn't matter. They could have a no hitter. It's still going 5 hours.
Yeah, you're right. And again, we'll go to things that Major League Baseball are doing is that they're doing things to extend the games, checking pitchers. Oh, yeah, they're trying to do it at the end of the inning to slow things up. But then you have a coach like Girardi going out there to slow up the game by having Scherzer checked, right? So there's things that they can do to speed up, but as long as TV's around, it's not going to be sped up. The TV companies, stations have to make their money as well with the commercials, and that's what takes so long for these games. Because you're right, 2-1 game ends up being still 3 hours.
Yeah, it's incredible. All right,
here before we go, I just want to touch one more thing. We were talking about trades and all that stuff. I was reading something that Scott Boras, the agent for Max Scherzer, has come out and said that he will not accept the trade anywhere unless the team he is going to will extend his contract. And Scherzer has that right because he's 10-5. 10-5 means he's 10 years in the league, and the last 5 has been with the same team. So he has the right to veto any trade. So he's going nowhere unless whatever team he's going to is going to give him a contract extension. I think someone might do that because, Verlander got, 2 years and somewhere around.
The question is, how long do you give him? You're not going to give him a 7-year deal.
No, but he might be looking at a 2-year deal. Yeah, he might be looking at a 2-year deal.
If you're the Blue Jays, do you do that? Because there's talk of,
I would.
us
Yes.
taking Verlander. I
Yeah.
take Scherzer in a second.
Yeah, if that was the question, it was a 2 year, say, 58, $60 million deal in that 2 year. I do it because their payroll isn't awfully big right now with all these young guys that they have going. They need some studs in that pitching staff. Scherzer would be number one there, and you would have a solid three right there with
Yep.
Scherzer, Ryu, and Ray, and then you got Matson, whoever's the five, Manoah or Stripling, right? So you have a strong. It would make sense, but we'll see if that comes
I
to
would do
fruition.
2 years, 50 million, like 25 million a year. Well, why
Yeah,
not?
we'll see. We'll see what happens because Scherzer's coming to the end of his time. Maybe 2 or 3 more years left in that arm, and he's a guy who battles. I love watching him throw, and he's a guy that would look awfully
Would you
nice
take
in blues.
would you take Scherzer or would you take Verlander? Because the rumor is next year we were going to get Verlander. So would you take Scherzer or Verlander? Or if you could fill it, would you take both?
Well, if I'm going on now, I would say Scherzer only because Verlander's been out with Tommy John surgery, right? So he still is a few months away, and you don't know what he's going to be like after he comes back on the mound. Scherzer, you know what you're getting now. If Verlander is what he was before the injury, that'd be a tough question. The Verlander Scherzer because they're both absolute
Amazing.
competitors on that mound.
Imagine if you had Verlander, Scherzer, and Ryu, and then
Yeah,
Robbie Ray as your fourth. And so it's
yeah,
like,
yeah. We can all dream.
yeah, all dream. All right, so that's it for stolen bases with old Lefty 22. But I just gave away where to reach you. But go
I
ahead,
don't
tell
have to say
everybody.
it. I don't have to say it. You said it for me. Oh,
All right,
Lefty22 on Twitter and Instagram.
all right, and we'll be back here on the Blue Jays strike zone prior to the Blue Jays Baltimore Orioles game, about 2:30 here. So stay tuned for that. Maybe Marty will change his hat and put a Blue Jay hat, and maybe I'll get that guy with the bad hair, some guy named Billy the Greek or whatever. So
As long as he fixed his tablet.
yeah, fix your tablet or go get some earphones, you cheapskate. All right, thanks for watching Stolen Bases here on the Fired Up Network with Marty Roberts. Thanks a lot, Marty.
Thanks, Joe.